let's do this. Let's see. How's everybody doing out there today? So, we're going to give people a little bit of time to show up. But for those of you who are here already, what we're going to do today is we're going to do some construction in Ingrid, one of my favorite little bits of software. We will talk more about the specifics of it as we get going once people show up. But we will maybe make a MIDI crossword, something like that. So I kind of want to talk through a theme, because I have a theme idea for this that's pretty weird, but I think maybe that's perfect for a puzzle that you make on a stream. And we'll talk through making a grid, placing blocks. We'll talk through filling the grid, which I think is maybe the most specific to Ingrid thing. Like, the method of filling is going to be maybe a little bit different than we might use in other software. So we'll talk about some of those specifics. And then we will maybe do some cluing. But at the very least, we will go through grid review, how to check for dupes in Ingrid. That's another thing that Ingrid is really fantastic at. So we will talk about that. And hopefully this is helpful. I know a large handful of people have talked to me before about how they're interested in using Ingrid, and I think if you've been using other software before, it can often feel really intimidating to jump into a new bit of construction software just because you're really used to the way things work in your software, which is totally understandable. They all work a little bit differently. So I'm just hoping to give people the option if they're interested. Hello, hello. How's it going? 7, can you remind me, because I always mix this up. Is that Ryan? I can't remember your Twitch username. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I'm doing pretty well. Yes, okay. Hello, Ryan. Well, so far you're the only one in chat, so I'm going to be explaining your software to you. But yeah, I was just saying a bunch of people have asked me about getting using Ingrid. It's both some editors and some mentees from Lil AVCX 2024. So I'm hoping some of those folks show up today, or if not, they might be watching back the VOD in the future. So hello from the past to those folks. I think what I'll do is I'm going to give a really brief intro, and then maybe we'll talk about theme for a little bit. See if we can come up with anything on that front. And once we've done that, then we will maybe get into the actual specifics of making a puzzle. But so this software is called Ingrid. It's created by Ryan Fitzgerald. It's currently free software. So it's an amazing resource, and we want to be really respectful of the fact that it's available for free. I think right now, for most really serious constructors, probably can't be the only piece of crossword software that you use, only because there's a couple big things that you would like in that. One is, word list editing, and although that can be done, obviously, just with a straight text editor, something like Crossfire does make it a lot easier to search and rescore your word list. Like, with word listed and a text editor, you can probably accomplish that as well. We will talk probably a little bit about word listed today as well. And the other thing, it would be really great to have one day would be Rebus support, because I think it's nice to have that like Rebus option that Crossfire has. No doubt those features will be coming eventually, but again, we want to be super respectful of the fact that it's a passion project for Ryan and has been made available to the community for free. So I'm a huge advocate for it. I do most of my construction in Ingrid. That's my intro on that. This main screen you're in is what you'll see when you make a puzzle from the Projects tab. And we can mess around with size and symmetry and all that stuff. Let's start by giving it a title. And actually the title is something that I really need to do some brainstorming on. It's like Undersea Tarot Deck is what we're calling this. It's by me. It's going to be 2024 by the time anyone sees this puzzle, I assume. So I was looking through the names of some sea creatures. Devil Ray. We're just going to type some stuff in here. We're not actually going to make a grid, so it's going to yell at me a little bit, but that's okay. Moon Jelly. Hermit Crab. Let's increase the width here. Emperor Penguin, I had suggested me. So these are all animals of one sort or another whose names begin with a card from the tarot deck. So the devil, the star, I think as well, and the moon, the hermit, the emperor. Let's double check our list of tarot cards so that we make sure we're doing this properly. Sure, there's of course multiple versions of the suits, but the major arcana is what we're looking for, right? The Fool, the Juggler. Oh, interesting. We just want, I don't need a list of 10 different kinds of major arcana. Hello, Sally. How's it going? I'm looking up tarot cards right now. Right. The Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant, the Lovers, Chariot, Strength, the Hermit, Wheel of Fortune, Justice, the Hanged Man, Death, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and the World. So, and I don't know why we have these, we don't need these blocks really. So I think that might actually be relatively exhaustive of what we're going to find. It's a really weird set, admittedly. But I think Hermit Crab is a 10, Starfish and Devil Ray are both 8. And they are all sea creatures, and they're all tarot cards. So that's like really specific. I think what it really needs is a really good title to tie it all together. So we will brainstorm that over the course of this theme, and maybe by the end somebody will come up with something really clever. Grits, hello, how's it going? How's it going over there in whatever time it is where you are? Early in the day, I guess? Quite early? Quite late? Tomorrow? I don't, what day is it? 11:12 a.m. Oh, you are, okay. Gotcha. So Moon Jelly is really cute, but I think Hermit Crab is nice because Hermit is a little bit longer in terms of the tarot card. We could try to get 4 in there and make it a little bit bigger, but I think we're just going to go nice and easy. So hopefully I can have the best shot at like showing off this software and not looking like an idiot. So we're going to do a set with 2 8s and a 10, which makes me think maybe we want a 10 by 10 grid. So I'm going to try to cover all the various features of the software by the time we get done, but it might be in kind of a weird order. And now I think is a really good time to show off, might be my favorite aspect of Ingrid, which is versioning. So those of you who've used Crossfire or Compiler, you probably at some point have had a fill in a corner that you liked but weren't sure if it was going to be your final version. Maybe you wanted to take another crack at it, but you wanted to have that version there. You don't want to have to just like keep it in the back of your head. So at that point, at least what I would do in those softwares is save a file and, just put on a 1 -1 -2 -3, and then keep going and filling from there. And every time I got a new fill that I thought might be plausible, I'd save a file. And so I'd be ending up with so many different files. Hey, Joe, thank you for the gift sub to Ryan. Just perfect. That's very nice of you. We should all give money to Ryan. That's the theme of the day. That's the theme of the day. So what we can do here, instead of saving a whole bunch of different files, is we're just going to duplicate and make a new version. In this case, we're not actually keeping anything from version, not even the grid size. But now, if we want to go back and look, what was our theme list, we can always go back there. And as we work on different corners of this, we can make versions as we go. So we want hermit crab is our long entry. So that's going to go, let's turn on symmetry. So by the way, a bunch of different symmetries we can use here. Rotational is your typical New York Timesy style, this type of thing. Fourfold symmetry, right? What you'd expect to see. Not fourfold, but you know what I mean. It creates those kind of patterns. Left-right symmetry, let's clear these out. We can go to edit, clear letters and blocks. This will be a funky looking one. Let's see how we could do this with that kind of symmetry. It's not going to work well in a 10 by 10. It's not a great symmetry for our 10 by 10. If we went up to 11 by 11, that might work better. Top bottom is going to have, you know, the same issue for us. Could be done somehow or other. Hello, Dan. How's it going? We're talking about Ingrid today. I was just evangelizing to you about Ingrid. So we're here to demonstrate some of the features. We're gonna maybe make a MIDI while we're at it. You're using Ingrid right now. Love to hear that. Diagonal symmetries can be really useful, especially if you're trying to cross entries. Hi, hello Nora. Hi Shannon. Hello, hello. So like, let's say we had, you know, something here that was crossing something very specific here. You can kind of build around it in interesting ways with diagonal symmetry. Or actually, we could do like this, right? And that would make a pretty nice, nicely fillable grid. Maybe like that. That would be a really nice, easy grid to fill. Yes, great. I'm glad you're here. So let's pin a link to Ingrid to the top for 900 minutes. Okay, manually unpinned or end of stream. That's what we want. Yes. Great. So there's the link. Free software. Go download it now. Make good use of it. It's the best. So, and we can also turn off symmetry, which is really useful for a lot of things as well. In this case, I think we're going to start with rotational symmetry. Wonder if we should go to 11 blocks high so that we can put in this central entry, which is going to be hermit crab. These are just so I can visualize. I like to do this to visualize where the center row is, right? Maybe other people can just pick it out with their eye, but it takes me a minute to figure out where the center is sometimes. So that kind of thing can help you find. And then we have 2 8s to place, right? So we have, let's go back here. We have Devil Ray and Starfish. For those of you who just showed up, our theme here is quite odd. It's undersea creatures whose names come from the major arcana of a tarot deck. And if you have a title for this puzzle, please. We're desperately in need of something to make this theme make any kind of sense at all, but I'm I'm sure there's some clever title that will tie it all together. This is the power of the crowd. So be thinking about that. So we have 8s, right? So they're going to go, for example, here. But we can't, we don't want to place, the issue with that is going to be, it forces that kind of thing, right? In terms of blocks. Which is not necessarily, we can't do that, but let's avoid that for now. So instead, let's place in the 4th row, and that way, I'm going to have to take that out. Let's see what happens if we do that. It's going to keep them close together, which might make it difficult to fill in the middle. I hope this shows for anyone. I'm very bad at this type of, you know, making a grid, doing the actual physical part of it. But you know, the ultimate solution to it is to just iterate a lot. First thing I'm saying, I don't like that B and H, so I'm just going to flip these around. That's already looking a little bit better. So the challenge with this setup that we've given ourselves now is that we can't put a block here because that's going to give us a 2-letter word. We can't put a block here because that's going to give us a 2-letter word up top. And so we could go a little bit larger in terms of height if we wanted to. We could, you know, we could do like, ultimately we could do something like this. Starfish and Devil Ray. And then you can, you know, break up down here, you can break up there, go around like that. And so now, you know, one thing that you can see immediately in Ingrid is the colors are showing us how many words from our word list are available to use in those slots. So you can see right away, all the stuff with white or green, that means there's a lot of options available. And you can see this slot in here has a slightly darker shade. So this slot, 19 down, only has about 10 options. So the darker color you see, the more concerned you are about filling that slot. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't fill it, right? Because if we like one of these entries, there's a couple of them that are already like looking okay, then it's not a problem at all, but you're really locked into those entries. So when you go to fill, I often like to start with that kind of thing because that's going to really determine where everything goes from there. Because like this slot probably also is going to be relatively locked in. You know, I'm looking at that C. Instead of having a final C there, if we do it like this, then we have C blank. That gives you a ton of options, CH, CE, CS, right? All of a sudden, CK. All of a sudden now, it's way easier to fill that slot, but we've made this one a little bit trickier. So one thing I'm seeing is we could put a block there, and then we have to knock out some other things along the way. So this is problematic, because then now how do we break up this slot? We can't. So we're going to maybe... Right, it's going to be challenging. So we've set ourselves a really weird issue with these 8s and a 10. Let's see, is there any way to like cross things in an exciting way? Because it could be like, you know, starfish. That could work. And then devil can cross the 10 through the R's of the 8s. Yes. I like what you're saying, Grits. The 10 through the S. Yes. So the R. So then it's going to be like, let's clear some of this stuff out. Again, this is the process of making puzzles, right? A lot of iteration. So 10 stays in the middle. Starfish. Devil. Ray. What about the other way around? Ray over here. devil ray, starfish. Let's see. Is there a way we can change the grid to facilitate that? Maybe we just add a couple, if we make it wider? Can we go up to 11? Let's go up to 12. And let's move everything over one, like... We're not necessarily locked into doing any kind of symmetry here, I wouldn't think. So let's turn off symmetry. We'll just make a really asymmetrical grid here. Why not? Cute. It's a cute little grid, I think. I want a block there, so I'm gonna change my mind about how we. I do want to do that. So then, what if we go here, and then we can need to split up these columns somehow, like that. Is that going to be doable? Gives us some nice like bonuses for fun. This one could go like that because it's a little more open on that side. You know, I'm not attesting to whether or not this grid is actually within Lil specs. I want to be clear that we're not actually making a puzzle for Lil AVCS right now. The theme is wild and doesn't make a ton of sense. The symmetry problem is fine, but I don't know if we're over spec in terms of number of white squares. I'm not good at calculating that, but we might be, because we've gone a little bit. We might be okay. We might be okay. You know, we could put a block here. That's going to make things significantly easier. We could add a block here if we really had to, although it's really closed off. Seance. Seance. That's what you're going for, right? I like that. That's clever. Nice. So, you know, this is the process of doing blocks. Just a lot of iterating and, here, like this, right? We don't want two-letter words, that's for sure. We don't want two-letter words. And if we could avoid some four-letter words, three letters, the more we can avoid that, the better. Maybe like there, and that's not going to work. That's about where we started in terms of three-letter words. I do like the flow of this grid in any event, and we are looking for something that's maybe going to be a little bit easier to fill. Let's start with, let's start like this, and we'll decide if we want to up our word count as we go. It should be demonstrative in terms of how difficult it is to fill with a lower word count. So we may see it's difficult to find options that we like, and in which case we will up the word count and make it a little bit cleaner. One thing I like to do at this stage of the filling process, two things. One is let's make another version because we like this. So we're going to lock this in. We're going to call this like grid skeleton. And then we'll call this like filling. It just helps us keep track of what we're doing. The other thing we're going to do, this is on a Windows, it's Control L. On a Mac, it's Command L. We're going to lock these in. So now if I hit backspace, I can't accidentally delete any of these entries. This is super useful because we are going to delete a lot of stuff as we put stuff in the grid. So that's going to save us a ton of time. So locking in theme squares, super useful. One thing I've suggested to Ryan before is the ability to lock in black squares thematically, which is helpful sometimes when you're doing a rebus thing and you don't know which squares are connected to a theme entry in the other half of the grid, and you want to knock some squares out to move things around. Aqua Arcana. Interesting. Aqua Arcana. Yeah, Arcana. Seafood spread. Clever, clever. Individual letter locking. Yeah, you can, I can sometimes you need to lock in all of an entry except for one letter or something because it could be multiple things and really really fiddly things. But what are crossword constructors if not really fiddly complainers? So, not surprising we have so many suggestions for you. Lots of ways we could open this up and then we can fill it in. Underwater fortune weaving. Yep. So let's talk briefly at this point as we're about to go to fill. First of all, let's talk about the rest of the layout tab while we're here. So we've talked about changing dimensions. We've talked about changing symmetries. In this case, we're going asymmetrical. A word count, average word length. So both of those are two different ways of kind of conceptualizing how open is the grid and how difficult will it be to fill. A lot of what I have in my head around figuring that out is based on a 15 by 15, in which case 78 words is like a word count max at a lot of places, 5 point something. So we have maybe a little bit shorter average word length, but it is a smaller grid again, and number of blocks and percentage of cells. It just depends on the outlet, right? Like the Times has a really hard cap on the number of black blocks, maybe a slightly softer cap at somewhere like Universal or USA Today, and no particular cap at somewhere like Lil, where things like grid art and that kind of thing are totally acceptable. But this is a really nice feature to conceptualize, like where are my long entries, where are my medium length entries, and then where are my threes. So if you want to try to keep down the number of threes that you have, one thing we could do is something like that. Feels like it's not going to work, but maybe if we do that, and then maybe we'll go here, and maybe we'll knock this out, and then maybe we'll go, yeah, no, that's problematic, right? So like there, that's not going to fill. Okay, so that was a bad idea. Word link spotter really helps me in cryptics when cramming themers in. Totally, right? So you have a list of your whatever. You have a 5-letter word. Let's see, where are our 5s? It's really helpful to double check that you don't have things that are longer than your theme entries. Doesn't matter for the type of puzzle we're making, but if you're making one for the Times, for example, you may consider that you want your theme entries to be the longest entries in the acrosses, and then maybe you have longer ones in downs or something. But yeah, I really love that. And then you can also do the same thing with letters, right? So we can look through all the letters. This helps you visualize pretty quickly whether or not you have a pangram, right? So you can tell which letters you've used. So if that sort of thing interests you, you certainly can use it for that. And we have a little bit of a Scrabble indication here of which letters are a little more Scrabbly. Hello, Rich. Good to see ya. So that's the layout tab. And then before we go to the fill tab, I want to talk very briefly about word lists. So I can't, I would have to share my whole screen. I don't want to get into it, but I'm just going to talk you through how you would do this. So you would go to File Preferences. On there are a couple of options. One is Required Word Score. So word score is taken from your word list. Most word lists are scored, meaning it's a text file in the form of your entry and then a semicolon and then a number. What the required word score means is that anything below that number on my word list won't show up in filling at all. It's the same for the software as if that word does not exist. And word score can really change the way that filling feels. As you put your word score higher, options are going to drop dramatically. At the same time, you are lowering your risk of running into things that you don't want to put in your puzzle. So if you can fill something cleanly at a higher word score, then most of the time you probably would prefer that. But as things get really complicated and difficult to fill, sometimes you need to lower that word score to see what options are available, and sometimes there's something scored at a lower word score that you might be okay with using, and just weren't aware or needed to score it up on your list. So as we said earlier, there's no word list rescoring in Ingrid just at the moment. But you can do it in a text file, so it's super easy. I use Crossfire for that. I wouldn't recommend buying Crossfire just to rescore words in your word list, because that's a pretty expensive text editor. I'm hoping that maybe somebody comes along and makes a nice, robust word list editor at some point. I'm not a coder, but it seems to me like it should be manageable as its own thing, since all you're doing is editing a text file. But again, I'm not a coder, so I ask and I can only hope. A couple other options on that menu that you can't see right now, but again, it's under File Preferences. Longest shared sequence, so how many shared letters in a sequence will the fill engine allow? So mine is set to 4, meaning if 2 words have 5 of the same letters in a row, the engine will automatically exclude that second word. There's always unexpected overlap with dupes that is not real dupes, so that's why I have it set a little bit higher. If you're really worried about dupes, you could set that to 3. But yeah, that's something you can play around with. And then the fill time limit, that just has to do with how long the engine is going to work before it gives up. And then also on the file preferences is a list of word lists. So I have a whole bunch of different word lists. I've got spread the word list. I've got only the 50s from there, which has been working really nicely for me. And then I have my own seed list. I have a couple of other word lists. One is kind of a big merger of a bunch of different word lists that I have. One is the Broda list that's been trimmed. So it's not the full Broda list, but it's kind of had some of the junk taken out of it. I have the expanded names list. I have both of the et2 lists, which I actually think are surprisingly good if you trust yourself to not put something in a puzzle that you don't know what it is. There is a lot of stuff on the et2 lists that is really nice. Yeah, Ryan, I would have to share my whole actual screen to do it. It doesn't pop up with the little windows. That's why I keep saying that we're on the file preferences window, just so people can go back and find that if they need to. Yep, there are 2 et2 lists. A second one was released relatively recently, and there's thousands, if not tens of thousands, of entries on that list. So, a lot of stuff on that list is not something I would put in a puzzle, but the amount of stuff that's really good that pops up from time to time is surprising. Let's go to the fill tab now, and I can actually show you in terms of required word score. So 50 is going to give me all the 50s from spread the word list, so that's nice. But actually, I have the et2 list scored at 49, which allows me to add in those et2 lists by just knocking our required word score down by 1, and it allows me to take them out if I want to go up to 50. So that's a really kind of convenient way for me to toggle those lists on and off. If anybody has questions about how to turn a word list into all one score, that's something that I do in compiler, but could again probably be done with any robust text editing tool with a little bit of work. So now we're in the fill tab, and so whatever entries we're on, it's going to attempt to fill. Let's pick one of these long ones. Let's start over here, because if we can't really make this entry work, then we might try. We don't really want to place a black block there, because it would feel really cut off here. Can't believe I'm using your brilliant theme for this. Your theme, huh? Interesting. And not sending it to New York Times. When I look at these long slots, oftentimes I want to sort by word score. So we have a couple options here. Sort by recommended, which is, I think, looking at sort of the overall fill score, and is it forcing worse options? Is it forcing less options? So something in recommended is going to be maybe the easiest to fill with. But if we search by word score, it's going to allow us to visualize, first of all, if there's anything on the et2 list, the 49. I made a thing is actually really funny. I don't know what YHWH is. Oh, I guess that's like Yahweh without the vowels. Probably should not be on our word list, but I made a thing is quite funny. And I'm trying to think if there's a way to, what if we do this, then, does that work? Lock it again. So that actually seems to work a little bit better for us. Doing an uh-oh is funny if it matters. So one thing you can see down here, it says 242 more undecided and 1380 unfillable. So unfillable are options that the engine has considered and said, this isn't going to work. We can toss that one out. Undecided means it hasn't crunched all of those words yet, and what this program is waiting for us to do is to make a decision about some of the options it's shown us so far by either accepting or rejecting them. Stella Parks is really fun. Isn't Stella Parks the Brave Tart? Yeah, that's cool. I love Brave Tart, so that's really cool. So what we could do is we could hit approve. Now, by hitting approve, we have told the engine right now that this is the only entry that we approve for this slot. So all the options it's now suggesting to us, including this D6 that's forced up here, are based on this being in that slot. If we approve some other things, then it can give us options that will consider all of those. So this is one of the big features of the way Ingrid works. And another way to go about it would be, instead of approving anything for the slot, we can start to reject some options. So let's look in our 50s, which most of this probably don't like as much. Some of it is fine, but let's just say all of this stuff, we're going to reject it. So now it's going to crunch some more options for us. We'll do that a few times. Quintanilla, is that Selena? So we can, let's just have it crunch a few more options. We'll see. Epic failure. So yeah, that's red keg. Oh yeah, true. So usually I think with longer options, I'll either pick one or I'll pick a couple. I like auto magical. That's kind of fun. I like amen cadence. Epic failure is not bad. Trivia buffs. That's kind of cute. Let's just pick a few. Let's say this is good. This is good. That's fine. Trivia buffs, sure. Meatball sub. Stellar Wind, I like that a lot. Slot machine, that probably has some fun ways to clue. Where are the caps entries coming from? It might be Broda, and it might be my merged word list. I think actually all of my word lists are caps except for spread the word list. So the lowercase ones are coming from spread the word list. All the rest might be from Boisvert's collaborative word list. There was a word list I added at one point that was like all the New York Times words, and also trimmed Broda. Yeah, so a whole bunch of different places. The ones that are super high scored, like 80s and 90s, those are from Boisvert's thing, I believe. And then maybe we've now crunched everything, so we've voice actors. I like that a lot. And so now we can start to take a look at some of the more constrained slots. Like for example, here you can see we have a good chunk of options, but you can already see like, okay, I don't want that, I don't want that. So oftentimes what I'll do with these shorter slots is go through and put in stuff that I like. At this point, like Michelle Yeoh, that's great, but also we want to be really careful with our crosses, although that's such a nice entry, and so current that I would leave that in. Yipe, that's cute. Yins, sure. Year, yes, I. Nope, we don't want that. Yeti, yeah. Yell, Yuri, maybe not. Yule, maybe. Yays is fine. Yelp. Yeet. YWCA. Yurt, yips. Use, maybe not. Yuck. And so we can approve those. So now we don't have to make a selection on that, but that is going to start to limit, for example, the number of entries that can go here. And if we look at this, we're like, okay, that's more than we need, and there's so many undecided. So we can do a couple things. We can either try to put something from our seed list in here. Bol is the son of Manute Bol. That's everything on my seed list is sports. We will discover today. It's actually looking relatively clean as far as fill. So yeah, I'm tempted to do that because we don't have any other propers. I mean, Amen Cadence I think could be really tricky for people. So maybe we would avoid that and treat Amen Cadence as though it's a proper, because not everyone is going to know the term cadence, and that makes things hard. I don't really love ALC, and if that's the only thing that's going to go in there when Amen Cadence goes in there, it should be Plagal Cadence. Yeah. Well, let's try trivia buffs. D10 I like. I know people have mixed feelings about these as fill, but all the dice from Dungeons & Dragons, so D4, D8, D10, D12, D20, they're all on my word list. I think it's fun. And we can see right away, this is now really constrained. We don't really like stab at, but Isabel's fine. Seabed is fine. Ba, how do we feel about that? I saw it in a puzzle the other day, and I thought it was odd. Do you have D100? Ooh, I don't have that on my word list. For sure I don't have that. I would roll a D10 and a D percentile, which is also a D10, just with like 10, 20, 30 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think a D100 rolls very well. I don't own one. CB is like a maybe if we had to, but let's go back. Yeah, we're really limited with those options right away. Interesting. Trivia. So here's something we could do. We like trivia up top, maybe. And buffs, that B is a challenge. So let's take a look at one look. We're just going to say trivia blank. We're going to sort by commonness. We're going to look for length. Trivia night, trivia game, trivia quiz. We could try trivia night in there. That's pretty good. So let's go back to our puzzle. Let's put in trivia night. And let's clear out, by the way, the things we've approved, because now we have this new Y. We didn't approve anything that was this, right? So that was going to make things hard. Let's leave our rejections for now. Yips is probably good. Yins is hard. Yipe, I think I can live with. So let's say these are approved here. Again, we can look at the long stuff, or we can also look at the short stuff and take out and only put in things that we're really happy with, right? That's fine, that's fine. That's not great, that's not great, that's fine, that's fine. Let's start with those. Same thing here. This is probably our best option. TDs, this is looking okay. TPs. So let's see here. Bopped, Bo Peep, and Binder. This has a few options. Let's look here. Beanos we don't want. Pianos is totally cool. Well, let's look at this slot. Because I saw, you know what I'm seeing and why I'm jumping around is like I'm seeing something like Desi pop up. I don't want that. Deco is fine. Taco is fine. CC I think is fine. NaCl I can live. All of these are fine. So really we don't need to do anything here. This is not going to change anything to say approve. Alanon I think is good if you can clue it in a sensitive way. Beanie actually is really nice, right? So looking at this corner, I think there's just too much trying to be kind of clever here. GDI for goddammit is kind of funny. Yins as the like East Coasty thing is cute. Easy is funny. But I think that pile up of those three things in one corner makes me say like, we can do better, right? So I think any one of those things is like kind of cute or funny. And all three of them in the same place is it's a little bit much. It's a little bit much. So, you know, we could say, all right, let's reject Beanie, as fun as that is. Meanie is going to have the same issue, right? So we can get out of that. So it's looking actually like the ON is working better. I don't know about that. And I don't know about TJ Maxx. So I actually feel like Alanon is probably our best option here. It's going to force that, which is fine because we approved it. So, you know, what I really like about Ingrid that's maybe different from Crossfire is as we go boom, 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 we can feel confident that we already like the things that we have in there because we've approved stuff in that slot, whereas it's really easy to end up with a 3-letter or a 4-letter word that you don't recognize, you don't like, just as you kind of click through things. Minivan is quite nice. Bon Iver is also really nice. Let's come back to that. Let's see if we can finish off this corner. That is going to give us confidence that we can end up going somewhere else. I mean, Bo Peep is fun, right? And it's not crossing anything too hard. Yipe is funny, but we're going to like neons, geo, hen, TPs. This is all, again, not the greatest corner I've ever seen, but like that all totally works. So let's go with that. How's everybody doing out there? Any questions? I'm covering this, trying to do it in the way that like you would go through as you make a puzzle, but of course, I'm sure I'm leaving things out along the way. You know, one thing we could do right now, we could make another version, just to, if we want to then knock stuff out and come back to it. I was told to tell you that Shannon and Sid will go live shortly. Fantastic. We're going to raid into them at some point. They're going to be doing the Super Mega, so that is super cool. Tech Daddy Phil asks, what word list is Bon Iver from, out of curiosity? It's a great question that I am going to now launch Crossfire to figure out for you, because that is how I can search all my word lists at once. Again, Crossfire, very expensive as just a word list editor, but let's see what word list it's on. It's on Spread the Word List, and it's also in my merged word list, which is a combination of a bunch of different word lists. But yeah, Spread the Word List does have that one on there. Okay. I can do this. Let's go here. So let's knock out Miniver. We have some difficult-ish choices to make here. And I'm looking at maybe... Yeah, it kind of depends on how you feel about Earl, right? If you're fine with it, then this is maybe the best fill. This leaves us with the very poetic Nair, which I don't totally love. What about this? I think this is my favorite fill. In essence, so we have a couple like let's go. Now there's a couple of these things where I'm like, is that a clue? So here's what I do at this point. Let's go back to our browser and we're going to, oh, I actually haven't opened up a tab for this, but let's go to crossword tracker. This is akin to Xword info, but it uses a bunch of different sources. And so let's look up SD. So this is going to show us, first of all, we can learn something by just looking at like what outlets has this been used in. So it's been used recently in Universal, it's been used recently in LA Times, and recently in USA Today. So that's enough for me to say right away, this is probably a very acceptable entry, because USA Today has really high standards for fill, as does both Universal for sure, and you know, then having LA Times and Newsday just kind of seals it. So it can be clued as an Italian noble family, but for us probably it could be this in Spain, or also it's right, east in Spanish, it looks like. Okay, hello Dob, hello Bagel, hello. I saw a little bit of what you guys were getting up to. It seemed like fun. You're doing some regular puzzles and some cryptics. We are talking about making a puzzle. We're using Ingrid. We're learning how to use Ingrid. So right now we are on crossword tracker. Let's go back to our Ingrid. It's pinned, by the way, in case you want to download it and use it. Fantastic bit of software. So we actually do like SD here. I think we can get away with like PS Vita and then Bon Iver. So my question now is, like, I'm asking myself, I'm throwing in D10, which is something that is like specific to me, PS Vita, which is something that's relatively specific to me, and Bon Iver, which is also something that's relatively specific to me. You know, am I making my life too hard for solvers there? So let's back up a second and reconsider our options. And let's say, let's try minivan, and let's see. 9 is fine. Yeah, I think we're gonna go with this, even though Urs is not my most favoritist bit of fill in the world. It is a language. It's a term for, you know, a language. What did I say? Bon Iver, I think is how it's Bon Iver. Bon Iver. What did I say? Bon Iver. Bon Iver? Bon Iver? Vito, like Vito Corleone. Bon Iver. Bon Iver. Back up a step and demonstrate the dupe warning. Yes. Where were we being shown? Right. Okay. Yes. Okay. So right here, it's telling us that neon is a possible dupe of neons, which is a super good catch. I think it'll pop up with that big bright red alert when we have a 4-letter overlap. And it might pop up with a less bright red alert with a 3-letter overlap. But that is good to know, because we should probably avoid that, which means that we've put ourselves into a little bit of a hole. Now, a couple things we could do. We could, if we had to, place a block here, right? So we can go like this. We cannot do that because, wait, let's clear our approvals. Let's clear this out. Wait, why is that? It doesn't like Alan on all of a sudden. Yeah, okay. Not a good idea. We could put a block here instead, which is going to force DTF, which is fun. I think we could live with that, maybe. Let's see if there's something we can do other than neon. So we gotta get rid of neon because it's dupe. Unless we see any other great options here. Nerds. GED. HED. What does crossword tracker have to say about that? Head. Heed. Right. Like heed. I knew he'd say that. If only he'd listened. Okay. And then sure is also not great. You know, Nene's is I don't know. If Grits will give me approval to use Nene's, then we'll put it in. If that's something that actually shows up on the island, then I'm cool with it. Because all the rest of this fill seems fine. Gretz, go off. What do you have to say? This is an interesting thing with Hawaiian words and puzzles. Hawaiian doesn't plural with S. Yeah, I was wondering about that. Because it doesn't use S at all. S is not a letter. Quite literally, there's no morphological plural indicator. Fascinating. You know, we could probably live with needs. And a year ago, I would have said, well, this is a loan word in English, and English uses S, yeah. Let's try needs. We can do, you know, heed. We'll make that work with a fill in the blank. And then now we can use neon up here. Wait, why is it unfillable? Is it because I rejected something? Yeah, so, I don't know if that's intended behavior there. There was something that it didn't like. I think I had put in a word that I had previously rejected, maybe? Like Urs, but let's just double check everything in here and see if there's any other options. We could also go down to 45 and see if there's other options that pop up for us. GTP, nice. Living here now, that's just not how even English speakers use plural of lay or nene or whatever else. No, Grits, I would definitely be interested in like learning more about how they would pluralize those, or if they wouldn't, how they would find a way around having to pluralize them. Putting in a word you previously rejected might cause a problem. That makes sense. Let's clear our rejections for one thing. Can we do anything other than Urs here? Right. I mean, is this better? You know, we could be like ne'er-do-well. Actually, we could put it to a vote. This is one. What is Miniver? I have to look this up. Miniver. Is that a name? White fur, used in medieval times. And an Oscar roll of 42. Mrs. Miniver. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I feel like I have heard that. Miniver. What do people like? Do people like Bon Iver and then... Is this going to even work? Let's look. I mean, Mumbai should be a doable cross on the B. I feel like people could. Dat boy, big boy, sad boy. Sad boy, that's pretty funny. And then, you know, Earl or Urs or Erie. I kind of think this is just... I don't know. I don't know about Ina either. Maybe, Like, I want to be nice because we have D10 up there. Putting Dat Boy in a puzzle in 2024 would be a power move. Let's try this version. I like, let's see, Shumai, is that how you'd spell that if you had to? It seems like an okay spelling of Shumai. Wikipedia uses it. Since we're not crossing Bon Iver now, we can be a little bit funkier with it. Uh, Alumni is great. Scampy is great. Namdi Asamoah, that's a name I hadn't heard in a while. Giambi, there's a name I also haven't heard in a while. So we can improve those in. And then let's take a look at this long slot. We talked about we might, break this one up. But let's see what we can get over here. If we can get some fun bonus in here. Ate the onion, which means to believe a satirical story is true. Might be hard to clue. It is on my seed list, so I should have some idea of how to clue it. Let's look at our 49s. Wikiversity, Google Fonts, Dude Perfect, Cringe Fests. That's very fun, Cringe Fests. Let's try that. Riceman, I like. Gasp. Scampy. Manny is fine. Mini we don't want, so there's another, again, duplicate popping up. Do anything other than DSM here? Tony? DST? Sure, that's better. Eco. Dem. Okay, Democrat. There's a lot of abbreviations in there, so I might just take another look. See what we can get in here. MRI scan. That's not like redundant, right? That's actually what you would call it. MRI scan. Sure. But that's basically the same. Same thing we had before? No. Mr. Iscan. Yep. Can I? Can I? Yeah, this is looking a little bit cleaner. Because we can make this not an abbreviation of some sort. Cool. Good to know, Slug. We'll raid into them once we're done demonstrating everything. But I do want to go through filling. I want to talk about the review tab. We might write a couple clues, and then we will probably raid into them. Again, if anybody has any questions about the software, it's a great time to ask, especially since Ryan is hanging around. AOC. So let's pick some that we like from here. I don't know about SUNI. Again, I'm going back and forth to Crossword Tracker to check these things. Oh, Suni Lee, the Olympic gymnast from Minnesota. Sure. In which case, can we cross that really cleanly? What would we put here? ICU, I like. And then PSS. Well, isn't it, so PSS shows up in puzzles a lot. It was in LA Times in 2023. It was in New York Times in 2021. But surely PS means postscript. And so surely something that comes after a PS should be a PPS, right? A postscript. So PSS is nothing. So I absolutely don't condone the use of that in a puzzle. It doesn't make any sense to me. If it makes sense to you, though, sound off. Sound off in the chat. Let us know. This is looking possible. Muni has some options. Isn't PSS something you say to a cat? I think that's like pss, 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 pss. You repeat it 5 times in a row. I did have a puzzle that was like, yeah, it had like pss, 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 and maybe like here kitty kitty, and they were both clued as like cat call. And then I just thought, not everyone's gonna love to see that sort of thing, so that went into a folder, probably never to be pulled out. I'm thinking this is our cleanest fill, like this. That's pretty nice. So let's go here now. Let's go here. Ooh, yeah. That's. Do we like Rafi? Baby Beluga? We'd have to be really careful. We could always add a block, here. Nope, we can't do that. We could add a block here. And I already don't like that our word score is dropped. Boffo. It's like a British thing, right? Boffo. It's boffo. Sensational. It's fab. It's boffo. Let's try it. Bax is fine. Hot air is fine. Ate it up is okay. Smoke is okay. Cassette is okay. Taptic. I don't know anything about. That's on the et2 list. Taptic. It is an engine component manufactured by Apple that uses haptic technology to provide tactile feedback. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. I'm not loving any of this stuff, so I think what we're going to do is we are going to... What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Giving up is always an option. Giving up is always an option. Let's think about it. Well, maybe we take out cringe fests, clear our approvals, and then we can break up this slot here. Why is this so... Right. Why does it think that's the only thing that could go there? Let's get rid of this little corner. Let's try again now. Alright, let's go search by word score again. Maybe we can find a couple things we like in here. News release, maybe not. Catcher's box. Kitchenette. Have the floor. Zone defense, I like. I'm sure sound effect. Snooze fests. Self-defense. Use the force, I like that. Beta release. Oktoberfest, I like. Spoiler tags, I like that a lot. Taxidermist. Possible dupe of hermit crab. So we have ERMI being duped in both of those. In this case, we are okay with that. Toe cleavage, that's very funny. Rhea Perlman, I like. May I help you? Thunder Road, the Bruce Springsteen song. Teacher's pet, sure. So let's approve all of those, and then let's go back to this thing. Let's go back to what we had there. And then let's go back here. Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for people who are watching this, if people are watching this back, that this is giving you a sense of one way of going about filling. Again, my method of making a puzzle is very different. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Did Hose mad? Yeah, I like. It's amazing. I don't want to use it, but it is very funny. Wow. Wow. Okay, so let's actually look down here, because I think that's where things are a little more constrained. And let's search by recommended. Let's see something that's going to give us some options. Like chests. Yeah, I'm just all over the place here. Daka, maybe we can live with. Dana's probably okay. Some of these, you know, propers are like, could go either way on. Come on. I'm up. Small is funny. Smug, DM'd. I am'd. Iman? Yeah, so Bagel, the color is showing the number of available options for each slot. So a little bit of green means there's a little bit less than white. the yellow, and then the darker red as we go along, and more constrained. So oftentimes those are the places where I'm going first to try to figure out if there's stuff that we can use in those slots that we like. Cafe with two, it's like French. Cafe latte, cafe mocha. Let's see. Let's search and see how it. Cafe mocha. Yeah, that seems okay. People could get there. Sulfa, I do know what sulfa drug is, but I don't know how familiar it is for people. Yeah, again, we might need more blocks in here. Well, let's look here. Can we live with Ciara Cross-Eyed Cafe? Known American singer. Seems like okay. DM'd, Dada, that's fine. Shumai. Let's try this for a second. You know what? I don't totally love Infidel. So let's maybe do this. So that's going to clear out maybe some of the stuff that we've approved. We can look here. Iffy. U of M we'll use because it could be Minnesota, it could be Michigan. That's cute. Let's go back here. Let's see. Let them cook. I like that. Should we make this one really clean? Let's look here. We want alumni. Actually, I like Shumai, but I think it's going to be too difficult maybe, depending on how we're able to fill that top spot. So I want to be careful there. Now let's make this one really clean. So let's take only the things that make us feel very nice and clean here. Lamp, main, that's good. Hasp is just fine to me. All the rest of that we don't want. How about here? This is going to be a weird one. Iman, Imac. I'm on. I'm okay with that. I'm on. Imam. Smog. That's great. More. I'm okay. I may. And small. We're okay with. Now let's go here. On second thought, no. Let's go back here. Alright, so we knocked out everything on my word list. That's fine, but we do have some options here. Google Nests? I thought Nest is just its own thing, but Nest is... Oh, it's Google's speaker. I guess I didn't know that. I thought Nest was its own thing. Bill me later. That's like an option on... How about this? A lot of options here. Okay. I mean, beta release I really like. And then some. Exponential is kind of fun. Not even once. Time release I like. Solar energy I like. Little necks. Those are clams? Sure. Homogeneous, maybe not. Quarrelsome I like. Let's try some of these. So now we're down to a manageable number of options here. Steinum, sure. Mount Sinai I can live with. 8 into 1 inch slays. Slight is fine. Attires. Insight, trivia, night. Doesn't bother me. Tie into epsilon. Upsilon. What is upsilon? Is it just another letter? Upsilon. Yeah, sure. It's like a Y. Great. Then maybe we could look here. Puts out, bums out. Felspar. Like that's okay, so some of the stuff from my other word list, I don't ever use that because like that's clearly a typo. All Star is going to dupe Starfish. That's a good catch. Telstar. Yep, that's a good catch. Eats out. All right. Spicy. Rats out. Class up. Like class up the joint. Erasmus. Let's out. Pea soup. Axe out. Sets out. Again, we don't want Star. Sit out. Gets out. Ops out. Sea slug. Taps out. Rips out. Celsius. Sure. Hot soup. Bad snap I like as like a sports thing. Maps out is fine. God's law, I don't know. So where do we want to go? Where do we want to go? Hitbox. Can we just, it's gonna have some tough cross propers there. Let's look here. One thing you can do is just like go through a bunch and you can see what's generally working. Like, what are we gonna put in here? Maybe it seems like this could work out. Beta release. This is nice. Iman. So that's the model, right? Iman. Yes. Okay. Alpha. This is a tough-ish cross, but I think alpha is the letters. Inferable. You know, Steinem is definitely the most fun. Can we make this not a proper or a very easy proper here? Tamale. Super nice. Or tampon. Tamped. Let's go with tamale. I like that. Let's look here. Hate on. Ooh, hat tip is really nice, isn't it? Gish. You know, gish is an old gaming term, isn't it? Gish is a very, very old gaming term for a combination of a mage and a fighter. Yeah, Lillian Gish, right? Grits of the silver screen. I don't love it, unfortunately. Let's try hat tip anyway. Only Gish. Only Gish, you're telling me. I mean, I kind of feel like that's Sega crossing Gish. Crossing Steinem. Yeah, I feel like that's just a little too much for me. I don't know what a hat tie is, but I do know what hatred is. This looks promising. Do we like aid or ode here? We like a maybe it's not as promising as I thought. Hate on. Like, don't hate on me, bro. Hatter, like the Mad Hatter. Hatman is on the @2 list. I don't know what that means. You know, you could do a fun clue probably with the Mad Hatter. And that's quite clean. Lillian Gish, Ilsa Lund, Jenny Lin, Theta Barra. Yup. That's exactly it. Alumni. Let's try Rats Out. We're getting there, folks. You know, DLC is fun. Let's look at this final eye. I like SETI, so let's put SETI in our puzzle. And then, yeah, BAs and bow. I like that. So a little bit, you know, a little bit tricky. If I was going just for, like, cleanliness, we might do something else like that. But, I like that. I like that. Let's go up here. Again, we can look by word score to see if anything's short from my word list. You know, I do have some 3- and 4-letter words. Ube. Shall we throw in that for grits? Can we? We maybe don't want to do that. Sorry. Haha. We tried it. We tried. Let's look here. This is actually surprisingly constrained. I don't know what CBAT is. CB to CB at somebody. You're radioing them. Stat is probably nice here. Slat, drat, spat, brat, or brat. Swat, that, nap, frat. Like, a lot of these we don't like, and a lot of these are fine. Which, again, is, I think, where Ingrid really shines, because I don't want to eliminate a lot of these, and I really do want to eliminate a bunch of these. So this allows me to just make all those decisions really quickly. Now we're not going to see CB yet as we look again. It's I bar there is the issue. Burb is cute. You don't see that too much in puzzles. Do people say a singular burb? Or is it just the burbs? It's the song from that Reddit thread. I think I know what you're talking about. Let's see here. Let's go by clean. Let's go for clean. Something nice and clean. Oral's fine. Utah. Rear, roar. Oval. Bear, boar. Opal. So we can just pick a bunch of stuff. We don't really even necessarily need to go through all of these options. But we can start making some decisions. Hurt, pert, bart, tart, curt, part. Cart. Surf. Borg, sure, Borg. I don't like Marg as much. Mars, bar, Mars bars, Mars bars, jars, great. Look at some 3-letter words here. Just make some decisions about what you like, what you don't like. Well, in this case, we've made approvals. So what we can do is we can click this fillable thing, since we've approved something for every slot, and it's just going to give us a fill, and we'll say that's great. And if we, I don't know, put a J in here and tell it to do it again. How about this? Jars, opal, slat, apron, job. Pretty nice. So again, we're going to duplicate, since, again, it's like the equivalent of saving, right? So now we're going to clue, but just so we have this saved as a version in case we need it, we will version right now, and we'll call this one cluing. But first, actually, what we're going to do is go over to the review tab. First thing we want to do maybe is look for dupes. So we're going to go sort by possible duplicates. And let's take a look. Ale is possible dupe of tamale. So, you know, it's a complete 3-letter overlap. So it's nice that they pointed it out to us, but no, we're not going to go with that. Oh, and actually, I realized that it auto-filled for us this corner, which we didn't necessarily want to autofill, right? So let's take a look. I don't know about etes. It's okay, but we maybe don't want to. There can be any word listy things here. Tignataro is on my word list. How about this? PPP. PNECCVO. One of these days I'm going to put, you know, like 5 Fs in a row in a puzzle as like Tchaikovsky dynamic. So those of you who solve a lot of my puzzles, keep your eye open for that. It will happen, because it does show up for real in Tchaikovsky part. 5 Fs, maybe sometimes 6, and I would love to put it in a puzzle. So sooner or later. Ebo, again, is something that sounds like total crosswordese, but is something I would love to put into a puzzle. It's a, let's go and show you that real quick. Ebo, the amazing Ebo. It's an electronic bow, like for string instruments. Super cool. Yeah, it's really, really cool. I think my hesitance to use it has just been how much it looks like fake crosswordese. Like EMAC, right? So anyone who solves that, most people who solve that are going to be like, wow, that's awful. But it's super cool. This is kind of the plight of the crossword constructor sometimes. It's being like, no, but it is valid. It's really cool. It is, you know, rather dated, I suppose. But hey, lots of people have used it. Look at this nice list of musicians who've used it. REM on several songs used it. Noel Gallagher on "Don't Look Back in Anger," super famous. It's pretty jargony. Yeah, it is very jargony. Although at the same time, it's also super inferable, right? Because E and bow. But anyway, we're probably not going to use it in this puzzle. One day I may use that. NB is cute. Can we do anything with this BL? BLT? Can this be anything not awful? ETA, so we have an ETAs elsewhere. Let's try. Oh, Samuel Eto'o has been on my word list for a long time. Let's see. Yeah, you know, my hesitation there is just BLT crossing BTW. I think they're both totally fine fill. I just have a preference for. I guess at the end of the day, I have a preference for the things in my crossword puzzle to be words. And so I have a slight bias against abbreviations of any kind, even ones that are totally valid, like BLT. Like, obviously, you're not going to spell out bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich, but that's like a minor ding, and then it crossing another abbreviation is enough for me to be like, not my favorite. Again, I would do it if I had to, like, especially, you know, if it were more forced, but yeah, I do like, on balance, to try to use words in my crossword puzzle, because it's not a cross abbreviation puzzle. But let's see if we can put something in here that's, like, fun. Emmy's kind of fun. Ipe is going to have really nice letters for us. Of course it is. Ever looks nice. Vac. You know, maybe this is more fun. Maybe that's the most fun. I think that is totally fine. So let's go with that. We're going to duplicate it again because we saved the wrong version. So let's go to the review tab again. Let's start over because I noticed that this corner wasn't what we wanted. Ale is not a dupe of tamale. That's fine. ETAs is not a dupe of beta, although they're coming from... Yep. So we might not clue that as the Greek letter, just in case. Starfish, nope, that's fine. Esta, ETAs, those are fine. And we're doing okay. Let's also search by lowest word score. So Trivia Night, we added, but I think that's fine. Trivia Night, that's great. Why not? Definitely a thing at bars. And then we can kind of just look, you know, Urs is tougher. Alpha is on the tougher side. But overall, this is tough. It's not tough, but it's a weird fill in the blank or something. We have some cool. And, you know, we can go look at our long stuff. See if we like our long entries. Actually think these are pretty good. Steinem, Minivan, Rats Out. Ben Bass, hello. You wouldn't know anything about Trivia Nights, I'm sure. It's been fun seeing some of that, especially the kind of like quiz bowl style toss-ups thing, because I haven't thought about that trivia format in a really long time, and I really enjoy those sort of pyramid style toss-ups that start very obscure and get a little bit more cluey as they go along and end with, you know, a very straightforward question. I think those are fun because it rewards really deep knowledge on a subject, and you can buzz in and get power, right? That's really fun. So that's the review tab. We can also take a look at our clue characters here. This is something that is really good to know for those of you, especially for like USA Today and Universal, have a pretty hard, I know at least for Universal, have a hard cap at 1,600 characters. And so this is, I think, a really useful piece of advice for newer constructors. If you're writing for David at Universal, or you're making a USA Today puzzle, if your clues come in significantly over that character limit, it is going to be very difficult for the editors to try to keep all of your clues as written, right? Because going in and going back and like taking out 200 characters from a bunch of clues is really hard. If you've ever had to try to reduce the number of characters in your clues, you know that it's not so simple. You can start to target the long ones, but oftentimes you just end up having to lose some angles along the way. So if you aim to keep it under 1,600, that is going to give the editors the best chance of maintaining your stuff, which is what both you and the editor want ultimately, right? So it's a really good way to make sure that more of your clues get left in. Um, I know when my first solo puzzle for Universal, probably a lot of the clues, the vast majority of the clues got changed, and I thought like, oh, like that's just what an editor does. That's cool. Um, but as I've written more puzzles for that outlet and gotten more familiar with what David wants in terms of style and in terms of keeping the length under control, I think the last couple of puzzles that I've had, they've probably all been with Shannon, but we've had, very minor edits on the clues because we've learned what that outlet is looking for in terms of style. And then by keeping our character length manageable, it gives him a chance to just say like, okay, like I can change the things that need to be changed and maybe increase a little bit without running over the limit. So that's my advice to people who are writing for those types of outlets. Especially if you're newer, you will have more of your clues maintained, which is always fun. Yeah, let's plug Ben Bass's stream Friday, 7 p.m. Chicago time, trivia stream. Let's shout out. Very cool. What haven't we talked about? We talked about the approval and rejection system, so that's kind of the main thing, right, in the fill. That's, to me, one of the big features of Ingrid, using those rejections to get rid of stuff that you don't want, or picking a large handful of things that you do want for a longer entry and improving them. Versioning, making versions, right, so we can go back, we can say, all right, let's try it again. We didn't like the way we filled it. Let's go back to our skeleton. And then what I was going to do, if I would do that, is I would duplicate it again, right? So that we still have this to come back to, but we could start over. We could move blocks around. We could try to do something symmetrical, all sorts of fun things. Yeah, Ben, do you have any suggestions on a title? We've had some good suggestions for titles, but so we've got 3 undersea creatures, all of whom are names of cards from the major arcana in tarot, so the Hermit, the Star, and the Devil. I think Dan suggested Seafood Spread, which is pretty funny. I kind of like that. Below Decks. Ooh. That's pretty good. Below Decks. It's all a little bit not direct enough for the solver to understand, obviously. Naturally, I'd go with Ben Bass. Yeah. Like, is the solver going to understand what below decks means? Probably not. But we could do it. We could tip it in the clues, right? We could be like, creature, undersea creature in the tarot deck. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Something like that. So I think we could get away with a little bit less direct of a title that way. Yeah, so we talked about versioning, dupe checking in the review tab, another really useful tool that I think Ingrid does better than other software, so that's really nice. The ability to have different symmetries, so that worked for us to make a weird asymmetrical grid for this weird kind of interlocking set that we put together. Believer in these things being more Easter eggy because I was a solver for 15 years before I learned to care about themes. Yeah, I feel you. That's sort of the USA Today approach, right? Especially under Eric, but also under Amanda, is like, if you figure out the theme, great. Like, we don't really care if you figure it out or not, though, and you probably aren't even gonna know that there's one there. So we're just gonna make it nice and clean and have nice long entries. It depends. It just depends on what you want from and who your solving audience is. Right? I think at AVCX, obviously, most of the people who are solving are pretty experienced solvers because they had to go and search out a puzzle subscription and that kind of thing. So they're expecting a certain thing if a puzzle is themed. But even on unthemed puzzles, because we publish puzzles with titles, we will get questions like, "Was that a theme? I couldn't quite tell." Because obviously, especially Lil, the line between themed and themeless is very blurry. There's a reason why we never use themeless in any of our puzzle titles, and it's just a very blurry line. It's not a hard line. Marlin, Devil Ray, Dolphins. Yeah, don't you wish they were still called the Devil Rays? What a better name than just the Rays. They really downgraded, in my opinion. What else can we show you? So, again, you can't see all the stuff as I go into these file menus, but from here, we could export this as a PUZ file. We could export this as a spreadsheet, so we could copy then, we can copy the entries into a spreadsheet to start cluing in a spreadsheet if we wanted to clue collaboratively. We could export just the grid image if we wanted to share a grid image with an editor. One thing that I do in here that, again, you can't see, but on the edit tab, you can clear all approved words or clear all rejected words. Again, when you've made a bunch of approvals or rejections, especially if you then change an aspect of the grid, that might really limit what you're able to fill. So going back and clearing approvals can sometimes be a way to make sure that things are working again. Other than that, this has been a demo of Ingrid. I don't know if the puzzle that we built is any good. It's kind of crazy. It's asymmetrical. It's a weird theme. But it's fun. There's some fun stuff in there, so maybe we'll clue it up at some point. Ben, this is Ingrid. Great question. And if you look at the top of the chat, ingrid.cx, you can go there and download it for free and start making puzzles today. So that's one of the reasons why we're streaming today, is to just plug Ingrid a little bit, because it's such a fantastic, free and robust tool for constructors out there. Thanks everybody for hanging out. I hope everybody's having a great week. I hope you are powering through the last stretch towards break, if that's where you're at in your work schedule. I hope you're enjoying your break, if that's where you're at. Or I hope you are just keeping your head above water if there's no break in sight for you, as I'm sure is true for some people. Either way, I appreciate you. Tech Daddy Phil, Ingrid was made by Ryan Fitzgerald, who's been hanging out in the chat with us today. He's $7 on Twitch. And many of us would love to give a lot of money to Ryan so that he can spend more time working on Ingrid. So feel free to wheedle him on that front, because we all kind of want to give him money because it's really good software. And I think with a couple, pretty large, but with a couple additions of stuff like Rebus support and word list editing, it's going to be a very, very nice, robust tool that can replace pretty much all of their software. By the way, before we wrap up and before we raid somebody else, let's just go back and we're just going to make let's just go back to something we're not doing. Let's just make it totally, anyway, here's what we're going to do. We're going to clear everything out, and I'm just going to show you real quick, for those who do cryptics. Hey, Deanne, yeah, there will be plenty of VOD for you to go back and watch. We've been building a puzzle for about close to 2 hours now. It's been very fun. We talked a lot about the different features of Ingrid, so hopefully that's fun to go back and watch. The last thing I was going to demo really quick, if people do variety cryptics, you may be aware of a style of cryptic called barred cryptics. Instead of hitting period to make a black block, if we do control and then the arrow keys, we can add bars, which is a really cool thing. And I'm not particularly experienced at making a barred grid. I've only done it once. In fact, that puzzle you can go and see this very day. It's on Gin and Grapefruit. Let's drop a link to that in the chat before I leave. But yeah, that's my first variety cryptic. So that was really cool. Can we go to my Twitter profile, steal that link from there? But that was my first time making a bar grid, so I'm not very experienced at doing that type of thing. Good question. Are there pre-made layouts rather than placing the black blocks myself? So not in Ingrid. There are some resources online that you can use, and Crossword Compiler has a library of black block layouts. And I do use those sometimes because, again, I have trouble placing black blocks. But ultimately, getting more familiar with moving them around and experimenting with that kind of thing will serve you really well in the long run. So you can always search, but I think my advice would be Patrick Barry's book has a really good chapter on how to place theme entries. And once you've placed your theme entries, it will start to rapidly restrict the number of ways that you can break up the grid in different ways. So play around, try playing around with it on your own. But I'm blanking on the name. If anybody knows, there is a thing where you can go and you can search grid libraries by which squares are black and white, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. But the other way that I know about is, through Crossword Compiler has a library. You can also, if you're looking for themeless grids, you can always just go on Expert Info and look at, a Robin Weintraub puzzle, for example. This is what I do a lot. Cool. So anyway, if you're building a barred cryptic, you can now do it in Ingrid, which is really, really cool. And you could, if you wanted to, put bars in your American-style non-cryptic puzzle, which is something that Darby has done twice at Little ABCX in 2023. Yeah, thank you, Deanne and Ryan, for there's your link for that grid search option there. But yeah, so you could use bars in a regular blocked grid if you're looking to make things a little bit different, for probably some kind of thematic reason. Now what we are going to do is we're going to raid another friend and editor of Lil ABCX 2024, Shannon, who is solving the Super Mega with Sid. So that's really exciting. Let's go ahead and raid into them and go say hi. Yeah, I really love both of those puzzles with bars by Darby. They were both super creative. Cool. Yeah, thanks, Dadgum. Everybody go give that puzzle a try. I think it's very approachable as far as variety cryptics go. If you have any interest in solving cryptics at all. So I'd be very honored if anybody would give it a try. I'd love to hear any feedback. We will definitely do more of these if you hung in here the whole time. That's so nice of you. I'm sorry if things were rambly or less direct than they could have been. So it was more of kind of a demonstration of making a puzzle, I think, than just demonstration of the software. But hopefully that was helpful for some people to see. Let's go raid Shannon and Sid. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. And have a great rest of your day, and we will head over that way. Here we go. Bye.